and I think we can call her the world's leading expert in sleep in dairy cows right now. So we're hoping to take over that title with the work that Jesse's doing. But right now there's some competition, I guess, between UT and OSU and UK to try to dethrone SLU as the current leaders in sleep in dairy cows. So now we've tricked Emma into sharing what they've done so we can get a leg up and build on it. So thanks, Emma, for taking time out of her holiday in Tennessee to come share the work they've done at SLU. I think she's going to talk about sleep and also add in a little bit of some other work that they're doing there related to dairy production. So with that, I'll give it over to Emma and let her take over.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for inviting me to come to talk on my holiday. That's always nice. Can you hear on the other screens? Is the sound okay? I think so.
Bruce, can you hear?
Good. Great. So I promised Pete to talk about sleep in dairy cows, and that is what I did on my PhD project. So what I'll tell you a bit about that. Just shortly where I'm from. So as you all know, I'm from Sweden. And I love this map because Sweden looks like we are like 1/3 of Europe, very far up north. Uppsala is where I'm located, where SLU is, and then Stockholm is the capital of Sweden. So we're quite close. SLU, the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, is abbreviated SLU because of the Swedish translation. We have 4 main locations for education and research. So we are in Umeå. Oops. Sorry. Up here. They have about 1 meter of snow right now, so they're happy. I think the snow in Uppsala just thawed the other day, so we don't have any snow anymore. And then we have, so in Umeå they're doing forestry, research and education. In Uppsala we are doing most of the animal science work, and also the veterinary students are there. And Uppsala has the largest campus. And then in Skara we just moved the animal science students from Skara to Uppsala, so they're only doing research and animal science research. And then down in Alnarp, where you actually can see Denmark from the location, they are doing like gardening and plant science and things. So I am working as a researcher part-time at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine and Animal Science. Just a small part of my time though, it's just 1 day a week, so not very much research is going on, mostly just teaching. And then I'm also doing, coordinating the research going on at our new built facility for cattle, poultry and pigs, just outside Uppsala. So my main research focus since I finished my PhD has been, well, sleep and resting time is still a hot topic, I guess. And then I've been doing some about light or dark and the appropriate photo periods for their cows, or we think that cows also need some dark, so we are looking at how not having any darkness affects the cows. And I've also been working a bit with milking efficiency in automatic milking systems. Okay. Moving on to sleep in dairy cows. My PhD project was a collaboration between SLU and the University of Helsinki. So I had one of my main supervisors was at the University of Helsinki. And we wanted to look at sleep in, the main focus for the PhD was if sleep alters throughout the lactation period. So sleep is important. It has been shown that lack of sleep alters the hormone production, and lack of sleep increase the energy expenditure and impair the immune function. And all of these things are already extra challenging for cow in early lactation. So we wanted to look further into this, but sleep has not been very widely studied so far. So we needed to just start somewhere. So we started with looking at the method that my supervisor used on calves, if that would be able to use on adult animals. So this was the non-invasive recording method that I know that this group has been used. So you just glue on electrodes. It's the same type of recordings you do in human sleep studies. It worked out quite okay, but it was a lot of this. So the cows were down, they were resting, sleeping, ruminating, they were all good. They got up, they started to feed. They remember that they had some itchy things on their head, so they of course rubbed them off. And one person had to be there 24 hours. So could we maybe just look at the cow and see if she's asleep? I mean, that would be good, because the equipment is quite expensive. It's time-consuming, tiring to be in the barn all night. Would be super good if you could just film them. So this is the position that has been described as a sleep position for cows. Laying down, neck relaxed, head leaning on the plank or on the ground. We did good for the REM position. So REM sleep is also called the dream sleep. And during this sleep phase, the body is relaxed, or the muscles are relaxed, so the head needs to lean on something. So the cows either slept like Maya here to the left, fully stretched out, or Faga to the right. She just did this curled up position all the time. So that's good. For REM sleep, we found quite good correlation between the position and the actual sleep state. The cows, when they had non-REM sleep, that is also called the deep sleep, they were lying like this, head lifted, but still, maybe a bit lowered, but not significantly different. Eyes could be closed or half closed. Unfortunately, in this position, they could also be drowsing. And drowsing has been described as something in between sleep and awake. It's not really, doesn't have a really clear definition, so this also needs to be more looked into. I would maybe define it as light sleep. But they also had this position when they were awake, but just resting. So for non-REM sleep, we didn't find any good correlation. So far, thumbs up for the EEG recordings. Not so well with the behavioral observations. So we needed to continue with this method. So the next question was if we can record just for one 24-hour period, would that yield adequate data? Cows sleep throughout both day and night, so they don't sleep normally just during night. But do we have to record over a week to get a good estimation, or will just one 24-hour period be okay? And there's something called the first night effect in human subjects. And this could be due to discomfort from equipment and or new environment, from sleeping in a sleep lab, and of course having all these electrodes on. And it has been shown that total sleep time is unaffected, but the sleep architecture is altered. So you will have more light sleep and less deep sleep. And this is a bit messy picture. But this is just we had 9 cows in study. So this is just to show 4 of them. So you have the cows number here, and then you have the recording days, 1, 2, 3. We recorded 3 days in a row. And you have minutes per 24 hours on the y-axis, and the different sleep states is in the different bars. So just to show you a bit, so we didn't find any like overall change in sleep, but we saw that it was very individual. So 1367, she had a lot of drowsing, whereas 1513 showed a lot of non-REM sleep during the first 2 days at least, and then 1565 had a lot of REM sleep. So our conclusion from this is that there are quite large individual differences in how the cows actually sleep. But we also decided that a 24-hour recording period would yield sufficient data on sleep time. And when I was doing this study, I put the cows in the barn in the special area on Mondays. I came on Tuesdays to shave them, and on Wednesdays I started the recording. And when I was there on Tuesday, this cow, Fagra, she was all good. She milked as much as she should, and she ate properly. But on the recording day, when we started on Wednesday, she had a high fever and she had a golden mastitis, and this was later diagnosed as an E. coli mastitis. But she was already prepped, and she had been on my study previous. So I decided to keep her on, because usually when cows are sick, we just put them in an individual pen, and she was already in an individual pen, and I could be there and look after her. So despite that she was sick, I just kept her. So this means I have data from a cow with severe E. coli mastitis. So in previous lactation, in approximately the same stage of lactation, she was ruminating 7.4 hours per 24 hours, and she lay down for 14 hours. On day first of the recording, she was ruminating 0.3 hours, so she didn't eat anything, and her lying time was a bit increased. She was lying 16 hours. And then day 2, she was getting a bit better, and on day 3, she was eating at least normal. So E. coli can pass quite quickly, even though it can be quite severe when they are actually ill. So I'm going to show some data from her. So again, you have the minutes per 24 hours on the y-axis, and then you have the drowsing, non-REM sleep, and REM sleep, and different days are the different bars. So for drowsing, this dark gray is the previous lactation. She was drowsing quite a bit during the first and the second day, so clearly affected by this state. The non-REM sleep was a bit increased for the days she was ill compared to previous lactation, and the REM sleep was heavily reduced. And this is not surprising, because this is how it has been shown in other species. But it was an opportunity to record it, so I'm quite glad about the data. Okay, so moving back. So we use the EEG equipment. We record for 1 24-hour period, and now we want to know, does sleep time vary over a production year? And I chose to call it a production year because we included the dry period, so it's more than just a lactation period. So just shortly, the cow is not just a cow throughout the year. So it all starts with a calving. And then milk yield is increasing, and she's struggling to eat enough to meet her energy demands. When she is around peak lactations, she's supposed to be inseminated and be pregnant, and pregnancy will increase when milk yield will decrease. So I chose to record 2 weeks before calving, to record sleep, of course, 2 weeks after calving, and then in lactation week 7, 13, 22, and 37. And then I also recorded in early dry period. This study includes in a total 19 cows. I think I started off with these 3 recordings with 25 cows. And then they got sick and had to be culled somewhere. So this period is, of course, very we lose a lot of cows because of all the things happening there. So the effect of stage of lactation on sleep. So the design of the study was to look at the stage of lactation. We could also have used to look at the pregnancy, but so there's still a bit to do on this data. Again, you have the minutes per 24 hours on the y-axis, and then you have the different recording occasions, lactation weeks on the x-axis. And you will have the bars in all the different sleep stages. I have included drowsing in this as a sleep stage, but again, I'm not sure what we should think of it. So for the non-REM sleep, we saw that the cows in early lactation, they had the lowest amount of non-REM sleep. And it's not a huge difference between the other bars, but early lactation sticks out. And then for the REM sleep, is not a very good picture to show this, but again, it's a bit shorter sleep time in early lactation. And then adding on drowsing on this, you can see that there is quite a big difference between the late lactation, late pregnancy, and early lactation. So that was about what I have been doing for my PhD project. So, and that's it actually.
Can you go?
Yeah.
Can you go back one slide? So when you have those minutes on there,
yeah.
So you're telling me the cow lactation week 13 either was in non-REM, REM, or drowsing for a total of 160 minutes during 100. So basically, almost 3 hours in a 24-hour window.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing that I need to add, of course, is so the recording worked fine. I knew what the cows were doing, but during rumination, all I got was the artifacts from the chewing. So we don't know what the cows are doing during rumination. And the earlier studies, they didn't really, well, because they used the invasive method, so they would know, but they didn't think it was that interesting. So it's not really clear whether they can sleep or not during rumination.
So would you say that the amount of time they spent sleeping, I guess, would be less within the first 2 days after calving? So is that related to feed consumption at that time? Are they eating more in early lactation and therefore less later on?
You know what? I have some slide maybe.
I guess what I'm getting at is cause and effect.
Exactly. I thought I had slide with the rumination because I don't have eating. They're eating, how much they're eating or what the eating time. But and apparently I don't have that one either. I'm sorry. They did not ruminate more here. I think the highest rumination was around peak lactation. So they at least has almost the same feed and the same fiber content. So that could give an indication that they didn't really spend more time eating. But of course, that is just an indication and not real figures.
And one other question. At the very beginning, you said hormone levels are generally altered. What measures have been taken? As an endocrinologist, I'm curious. What hormones are related to?
To the sleeping dairy cows?
Yeah,
No.
but you said there were.
For other species, and has been shown. So all those things I said in the beginning relates to other species, because in dairy cows we don't know.
So in those other species, just out of curiosity.
Okay, so for example, dogs produce growth hormone when they're sleeping. I think humans do too in young ages. Yes.
They measure melatonin.
We have not measured melatonin. No.
So many. So I was thinking back to the individual cow-to-cow variation, and did you have the opportunity to look at how that may have tied up with production or other parameters at this point?
No, and it's also because it's 9 cows.
Right.
So yeah,
General.
so I since we were interested in looking at how sleep changes over lactation, I of course chose cows with similar lactation stage.
Okay.
But again, no. Yes,
Were these cows in individual pens?
yes.
How do you think it would change if you could do the electrodes but have them walking around a
Yes.
freestyle barn?
I would love to do that. I think the cows, so I put them in their pens 2 days before I started my recording, and they are quite used to be there. So I think, if anything, I gave them the opportunity to sleep as much as they wanted to. And they were milked in the pen, and the feed was given in the pen. So they had everything sort of within the pen. And for some cows, I'm sure, they would walk around in a freestall barn having no trouble at all, just walk into the automatic milking system, pass every cows in the line. But for other cows, I guess it's more challenging to be in a freestall environment. Yes,
One of your pictures, can you go back on this
sure.
sleeping cow?
More? Back.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
This one?
And the other one. Yes, now, is that cow sleeping? The very first picture?
This one?
Yeah.
She is asleep. She was always asleep like this. She always looked like she was dead, but she slept.
If a large animal, especially compound stomach animal like that, it's highly unlikely to sleeping because there is always secretion in the upper respiratory tract. They can easily become.
Yes. So the REM, both these positions, the REM sleep, they slept for about maybe 4 to 5 minutes in REM sleep phase, and then they either woke up or they would go to this position. So they didn't stay in this position for very long. And the average sleep bout was about 10 minutes. So they just had short power naps. It was longer naps during the night than during the day. Yes.
So with all the activity-based systems that are out in dairy cows now, one of the main sort of things that are looked at from the health platform and estrus detection platform is activity. Each individual cow, has its own baseline and everything. But one of the first things that would alert a cow to come on the health list is either rumination or activity, and it's low activity or low rumination. And so if cows, I guess if you think about it from that point of view, if a cow sleeps a lot and then has a small change in activity, she would automatically become on the health list.
Yes.
And it seems that there's a lot of data mounting with these activity systems to show that there are really good indicators of health from the activity point of view. So how does the sleep story fit into that activity story, and is it indirectly the same thing, or?
Well, if the cows are lying down for 10 hours a day, and they're sleeping about 3 hours of that, the activity wouldn't really be, I mean, she would have to sleep a lot to actually affect the activity, because the activity is like walking or steps and standing in line, right? So I don't think and this is the tricky part, because as long as the cow lays down as she should, or lie down, she probably gets the amount of sleep that she
Because like the tag systems, like the cow manager system and the USCR tag, they quantify an amount of laying down time. And it's quantified based on some crazy formula that they'll probably never tell anybody what's involved in it. It's some relation to a baseline of that cow's individual variation in a given day to what her normal baseline is over a 7-day period.
Yeah.
And so I just asked SCR what that measurement actually means and what it is, and it's only about a 5-hour window, at least in beef cows. I had no idea what it is in dairy. So it's close, it's not the 10-hour window that was originally seen with the activity-based things. So I wonder if it is, I mean, I think it has something to do with their head movement. So if their head is still, it starts to calculate a different based activity than if it's sort of on a dominant-based system.
I think from a sleep perspective, we need to look more into activity meters reporting head position. It works on calves, so there are activity meters to use on calves, because if their head has been still for more than 30 seconds, you can be quite sure that they are asleep. But for cows, it's not really the same though. Yes.
Is there any variation between day and the night? Like which time they sleep?
Yeah, so they sleep more at night compared to daytime. I'm not sure if they would do that if we weren't there disturbing them during daytime. But as it has been in my studies, when all the managements are being done between maybe 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., the cows are more awake at daytime. Yes.
Is there going to be any seasonal or temperature changes that affect their patterns?
For my recordings, or do you?
I
Sorry.
just like, I guess in general for their, I guess their sleep times.
I think so, but again, with only 19 cows and the recordings not being all, I had some cows who had their recordings during summer, and from my personal perspective, they looked like they were a bit more disturbed, but that could also have been from the flies that are, of course, more around in the summer, or that they were in early lactation, so I haven't really looked into the temperature.
At the very beginning, you did mention that one of the things you were going to look at was the amount of light versus
Yes.
dark. So can you give us any information on what you found so far?
Yes, so we did, I have done some studies on that. We did one when we were recording sleep and just taking blood samples for 72 hours every hour.
To measure what?
To measure, well, for example, melatonin and IGF. And the sleep wasn't very good from that study since we went in to the cows. So I can't really say anything about that. And we had the sort of light, the different treatment was 20 hours of light, 20 hours of darkness. Pitch dark. We had some red, like Christmas lights on, so we would see what we were doing. And 4 hours of light, and then we had 24 hours of that period. But so we were just screening to see anything. And unfortunately, the freezer broke down with all our blood samples in it. So we did analyze them, but I don't really. Yeah, I haven't really looked more into that. We did see that the cows during the dark phase that they had, they were standing up more at night. So there was some sort of lying and standing differences, but too few cows, I would say, to say anything about it. It was just a pilot. But other than that, I have been doing different light treatments on farms to see how dark we can, or how much we can reduce the lights before the cows actually stop moving around. So in VMS farms with automatic milking, we need the cows to be walking around. So we were down on 5 lakhs, which is pretty dark, and the cows were still walking around as they would. But it's a lot of, I mean, the cows also are driven by the feed management and everything.
So the main thing would be, in this research, if you change the amount of light versus dark, the goal would be, does it increase productivity of the cow?
Exactly. So, and that we don't know because,
Isn't Sweden considering legislating how much light dark cows get?
well, it is in our legislation that they need to have a night light provided, but it doesn't say how much light it should be.
Okay.
And a light at night. So they name cow. It is in our. We have a legislation for almost everything.
What if they don't like the light?
So in a freestyle barn, the cows need to have some light on. It doesn't say how light it should be. So, and that is what we are curious about, is that because it's in our Welfare Act. So is it really related to welfare or to production? And I'm leaning towards more the production.
But the legislators came up with this.
Is it to mimic the moonlight?
Sorry, what?
Would it be to mimic the moonlight?
No, I just think, so I have called the people who created this law and asked, what's your reasons behind this? And they send me around to different people, and then one professor emeritus that is not that I couldn't reach. So it is, but it is sad that it is, because the cows are a bit afraid of the dark, so they are easily scared when someone is.
It's a feel-good factor.
Yes.
Feel-good factor.
So you made a comment in regards to flies and said that maybe in the summertime where you have a high population of flies, maybe cows are sleeping less. And it's kind of interesting because cow manager, for example, in their ear tag, has spent the last year absorbing all the variation out from when flies land on a cow's face. If she shakes her head, they've figured out a way to somehow, I'm not sure how, take that variation out. But if that's really important, if that's waking a cow up, potentially it seems that maybe that variation should be put back in.
Yes. Maybe. Any more questions about Swedish legislation?
Just a quick question, because you're so close to the Arctic Circle, what is your daylight to dark?
That is a good question. So we, right now, in November, it is hideous. So it gets lights around 9 a.m. and dark around 3 p.m.
Wow.
And then you start to see the.
I can just, let me chime in, since I was there last year, and say that Emma's not painting the full picture because the sun may be up, but it never actually really goes beyond the horizon. So even though it's up at 9, it just sort of moves up on the horizon and then it goes down. So it's never really that bright. And the sun always seems like it's in your eyes. It's just a constant horizon.
It's annoying.
So that's why I'm here in Tennessee. In the summer, it's the opposite. So I think the sun sets at around 11 p.m. So yes, 11 p.m. and then rises at around 2:30 a.m. And that's
your sleep cycle.
And that's in Uppsala where I am. If you go further north, you will have the same situation, that the sun will just touch the horizon and then get up again. And we have the midnight sun up in maybe 8 hour drive north. So.
Wow.
I guess since you talked about the lighting, can you just talk kind of a few of the other differences? I know they have some pasture requirement, other key differences in general management of
Okay.
dairy in Sweden versus here.
So we have, the cows needs to be out on pasture, and that since it's such a long country, we have different rules where you are. So up in north, they need to be out 8 weeks, and down south, it's almost 12 or 16 weeks, I think, during summertime. No tail docking, no use of antibiotics in preventive causes, hormone free.
So in that respect, do they have AI synchronization programs?
We don't, there are people having that.
Okay, so they can use
They
those
can, yeah,
aspects.
yes. But it's not very common.
So most people are just inseminating cows based on 21-day cycles, or?
You said corn silage production in the lower half of the country.
Yeah, corn for feed can be produced like from a bit more south than Uppsala. Corn for human production is not produced in Sweden.
So that's more the base in the southern part. What do they use as a base in the northern?
So it's really tricky. It's just grass and clover.
Yeah.
But it's they don't produce as much up north.
Do they grain feed?
Yeah, and usually it's all produced on farm.
But what about up north where you said it was primarily grass? Can they grow grain and
Yeah,
stuff
they do that.
to
Yes.
store to feed during the winters?
Yes. So even though the period is or the summer season is quite short, they do grow grain. I'm not sure how well they would grow grain for human consumption, but for cattle, it's good.
And why can they not use hormones for estrogen synchronization?
No,
They
she said they
can,
They can.
but it's not very common.
Okay.
How about estradiol? Is estradiol?
I don't know.
The producers supplement with light, those long day photoperiods.
Yeah, so they, most farmers use a light program of 16 hours of light and 8 hours of dark, or they will have more than 16 hours of light. So that's,
Most.
and if you have a tie stall, because it's quite common still in Sweden to have tie stalls. I guess we're about maybe 40% of the cows are still in tie stalls. Then it's not very, then the farmer turns off the light when he leaves the barn.
So I did grow.
Since you're the home of De Laval, what about VMS? How common are those? What
You're
technology
asking tricky question. So I think about maybe 20% of our farms use the VMS, or it's not a VMS, but an AMS in some way. De Laval is like big in Sweden, so most people use VMS.
Voluntary milking system.
Any last questions for Emma? Okay, now let's give her a big hand for coming. Especially since she's spoken to a primarily English-speaking audience in her non-native language, since I don't think we would have gotten much out of the Swedish question.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well,